They were coming after our family because they were coming after the American people. They didn't want to see us succeed. They wanted to weaponize government. They wanted to weaponize justice. They wanted to go after religion. They wanted to go after the family unit in this country. They were going after the Constitution. DEI was prevailing. Everything was turning woke. We were losing our nation. We're saving Christianity. We're saving God. We're saving the family unit. We're saving this nation. I mean, DEI is out the window, Benny. I mean, you no longer have Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the national anthem. You no longer have, a Budweiser going woke as hell, or all of this is dead. And yet, what do we have? We have a return to people going to church. We have a return to people, valuing their children and valuing society and believing in the white picket fence and what the American dream represents and what the American dream stands for and American exceptionalism.
Donald Trump's least favorite son, tied for least favorite with Don Jr., that's Eric Trump, doesn't want you to believe what your lying eyes can see, as his father's Christian nationalist administration is wreaking havoc across the country. I mean, unless you're somebody that likes being thrown to the ground randomly or likes it when your neighbors are, without due cause or without any sort of identification or uniform or warrant or any of these good things that sort of protect our rights, and then oftentimes thrown into a detention camp or expelled from the country without due process. Some of the stuff that makes America, what I thought makes America great, but apparently is being really tossed out the window. But if you like all that kind of stuff, then you must love the Christian nationalist direction we are heading. And just so we're all on the same page here, the beliefs you are about to see are just scratching the surface of the specific flavor of the so-called Christians the Trump administration is working on behalf of.
The richest black people on God's green earth are African Americans. If slavery never happened, then you would be in a grass hut. Yeah. Right? Well, we need reparations. Your reparations are that you get to live in America. You're welcome. The greatest moment in history for any brown or black country is the moment that the white man's ships arrive on your shore. Because he brings the gospel of Jesus Christ, he catechizes you and your children, he brings exports, he brings hospitals, medicine, life expansion increases, GDP and resources increase, medicine increases, and most importantly, you get taught the gospel of Jesus Christ so that you can live longer on earth and then go to heaven instead of hell.
Okay, wow. That one was very wild. He literally claims black people should be grateful for slavery because of how much it improved their lives. He goes on to say that, not to say all white people are innocent because some slave masters were abusive, but most slave masters, those who own slaves, totally great thing to do is what he directly said. So there's that. How about this clip?
Would they be permitted to participate in, embody, and practice what I would call black culture generally in our church? The answer is absolutely not. Why? Because the characteristics that mark black culture as a generalization, in the same way Paul's talking about Cretans on Crete, they are evil, murderous, violent, bestial people. They steal, they kill, they destroy, they look like Satan in how they act. They are sinful to the core.
Oh, so black people are allowed as long as they don't practice their culture, participate in their own culture. So there's that statement that was just said. And then there's these guys who are so committed to supporting Trump, you see them twist themselves into several knots to justify what they acknowledge is going against the U.S. Constitution.
We're actually experiencing some things that in some ways violate some aspects of the Constitution because there is a needing to reclaim the nation. Now,
well, isn't that purportedly in an emergency act by the president, which we are under? Yes. He has the right to thwart the Constitution. He just pretends not to.
Right. He's
pretending to go by the Constitution as long as he can, even though he doesn't have to right now, because we're in an emergency.
So because you don't like how things are going, you're allowed to now usurp the Constitution by pretending there's an emergency that there's not, just open-endedly, and break the Constitution right in half. That would make Nicolas Cage very mad, even though that's probably the Declaration of Independence. No, you can't destroy the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. And look, obviously these bigoted fundamentalists are nowhere near an accurate representation of Christianity as a whole, Christians in general, or the true teachings of Christianity. Fundamentalists in general seem to be a problem all around the world. They make it as though their religion matters more than like common sense, decency, kindness, humanity, love, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, go do you, I suppose. But the Christian fundamentalists and the MAGA folks are so motivated to intermingle and work alongside each other just to achieve their preferred vision for America's future. And despite what you might think America's all about, that vision is Christian, and that vision is white.
What we have done with our reckless immigration policies is we have imported vast numbers of people way beyond our capacity for assimilation. And that means that we've just set up warring cohorts, warring groups that are suspicious of each other, that are jealous of each other, that it causes all kinds of difficulties. So the first thing I would do today is turn off the spigot. I'd stop making the problem worse until you have some sort of robust system that would allow you to have 10 million Muslims and 10 million Hindus and 10 million Christians and 10 million Jews all live in the same territory without being at each other's throats. It's not a good idea to do that.
Okay. Wow.
We are busy turning the Ohio-Michigan border into the India-Pakistan border. You need to have some kind of process of assimilation. You've appealed a number of times to certain shared American values. Well, what kind of sense does it make to import millions of people who don't share those values at all?
Also, I'd like to let you know that renamed Secretary of War for the Peace President that wants the Nobel Peace Prize so bad, Pete Hegseth, is a member of this Extreme Characters church network. And this man, of course, is parroting the white replacement, great replacement theory in this clip.
I believe that even with our out-of-control southern border, I believe that we are in a better place in terms of assimilation than Europe is. With Europe, the Muslim immigrants are largely Muslim, and in America on the southern border, the immigrants who came across the border were either Catholic or Pentecostal, but Christian, Trinitarian of some sort, which means that there isn't as wide a cultural divide. There isn't as wide, it's not as alien a world, which means that assimilation is going to be more possible, but it's not going to be possible if you're dealing with 12 million people just dropped on your doorstep.
And look, you can go and live in a fundamentalist country. You can go and live in a religious country. You can live in a religious-based country. I think that it's okay that certain places in the world want to espouse the culture of one religion, as long as they do so while respecting the rights of everybody and not imposing it and not using violence or in any way degrading the life or ability to pursue happiness. You can do that.
Yes, you'd have the same rights, but you wouldn't have the same privileges. So, for example, I mentioned earlier the ideal republic 500 years down the road. In a biblical republic that was explicitly Christian, there would be religious tests for office holders. Right. So if you came to America in 1800 and you were living in South Carolina, you wouldn't, as a Muslim, or as an atheist, actually, you wouldn't be allowed to hold public office. You couldn't be elected to the legislature, but you'd be allowed to live there.
Yeah. So you get that doesn't sound like America?
No, it sounds very much like America was.
Okay. So, all right. So you acknowledge we'd be going backwards, but that's okay. You're conservative and you're Christian national, right. So you want to go backwards to some degree. Do you get that doesn't make me feel that great? Okay, well, I mean, we're going to let you exist, but I mean, obviously you can't be in a position of power because you're not Christian.
You would have equal rights in that you would have the right to fair trial, the right of habeas corpus, the right to free speech, the right to keep and bear arms. But basically, if you have a Christian society, if the Constitution acknowledged the truth of Christianity, if the Constitution acknowledged that Jesus rose from the dead, then of course that you're going to want to protect that. But I believe, honestly, that people who were religious minorities, Jews, Muslims, who are here in the smaller numbers that would make this possible would be treated, certainly should be treated with equity and fairness. Yes.
But not equality. But see, because they wouldn't get to run for office. They wouldn't get to participate in democracy in that way. They could be ruled, but they could not be part of the ruling class. Only Christians.
So I don't believe that the Lutherans or the Presbyterians or the Baptists should be in control. But I do believe that there should be a Christian framework, or what the late Francis Schaeffer called a Christian consensus that surrounds the whole thing. I'm arguing for a mere Christendom where there's shared Christian values, but there's no policing power that will make Smith or Murphy go to church at this church, or where the minister is paid from the taxes that he pays.
Yeah. So, of course, the Supreme Court has ruled that not establishing a religion means all religions, and so things have changed since the 1700s, et cetera. But last thing on this, and I want to move to our last topic. So I just want clarity on it. So you think it's okay to establish this as a Christian nation, and hence the religion of Christianity rules? But within Christianity, you could be okay within different, you're free to practice whatever you like, right?
Yeah, correct. Correct.
But if you're outside of Christianity, well, then, I don't know if you're in trouble or you don't belong. You don't have any
you'd
power.
Be free. You still have liberty of conscience. The people who are not Christians would still have the freedom to congregate and worship and pray. I'm not in favor of religious persecution at all.
But being unequal feels like persecution, doesn't it?
Well, it feels that way to we live in egalitarian times. And so it does feel that way to many people, but I believe that you have to land at some point. You have to come down and decide. Every human society has to decide what they believe on the big issues. And so I believe that Muslims and Hindus and Jews should be treated right. I believe that. I don't think any of them should be persecuted or harassed or forced to deny things that they believe or affirm things that they don't believe. All of that we would agree. But I also believe that a society, in order to be a coherent society, has to have fundamental shared values.
This is a crazy thing. That's not what America is. It's literally the opposite of what America is. America is about freedom of religion, separation of church and state, and all that good stuff that the Constitution talks about. So even though Trump's president, is it cool with you guys if we still try to follow the old document? I think it would be nice, but I guess it's up for debate. You decide. I'm Ben Gleib for Rebel HQ. You can follow me at Ben Gleib on Instagram for so much more.